Today's video, we're going to talk about international PPC management and how you could structure international campaigns and ads to get the most profit out of them. So if you were wondering how to actually start to expand what you're doing outside the country that you're already in, this is going to tell you how to set up, if not a single campaign, or add locations that you have into the campaigns you already have for other countries, having separate campaigns for each new country that you want to target. There's different situations where you'd want to do multiple campaigns versus one, versus adding those countries to your existing campaigns. And I'm going to give you the clues about in this video so you know how to properly best set that up. But not only that, which countries to actually target, because there's a bunch of these countries that you're going to waste all your time and money trying to advertise to those countries and actually not even make a net positive ROI for yourself at the end of the day. And if you are going to make money from it, you got to be doing it in a certain way, translating the content on the page, specifically. And with that, I should say, you should be doing it in a certain cadence or order so that certain countries are targeted first, second, third, and so forth. So I'll go over all the details on that so you can make the most out of your international campaigns for your business if you're selling something that you can deliver internationally or a service that you can deliver internationally. So with that said, before I go into the content here, if you do not know who I am Corey Ziman, owner of Guarantee PPC, a online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for our clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we get them a certain minimum lift in their profitability up front on their campaign, generally in excess of the management fees that we charge. The way that we're able to do this, and with no other agency out there doing that, is because I got 20 years of experience running advertising campaigns. I am the lead strategist at the firm doing most of the strategy on all the campaigns that we run. So that should tell you something about the quality of the information that you're receiving on today's video. Now, before I go into these strategies, if you stay to the end of the video, I am actually going to give you a couple case studies that prove just how profitable this methodology that I'm going to share with you actually is and can be for your business. So make sure you stay to the end. With that said, the first thing to mention right up front in terms of international PPC campaigns and management as far as that is concerned, when you are making the decision to expand into other countries, assuming you're in the US, we'll just say, but it doesn't have to be the only US. If you're setting up your campaigns and these campaigns are fairly new or you're just even starting out, the best bet is going to be to have one campaign per country. And I know that sounds insane to have potentially 190 campaigns, one for each country, but I can tell you you'll get previous experience, way more results out of having different campaigns for each country. Why is that? Because each keyword is going to convert a little bit differently for each country. Red shoes will convert at a much different percentage and at a different cost per transaction in Russia as it is in the US. When you have one campaign with all your countries in it, the algorithm is slowly eventually going to figure out, okay, in Russia it shouldn't show this keyword, but in the US it should. It does figure it all out much sooner when you break out the certain campaigns so that you don't have as many variables going on at once, so to say. Not only that, but you can scale quicker. Because once you see Russia's doing really well, you want to jack the budget up on that right away. Versus if it's mixed in with all the other countries, you're not going to be able to do that as easily. And yes, the algorithm would eventually, or notice that Russia's doing well if it's one of many countries in a campaign and start to promote it more. I want the ability to immediately max it out, because normally what the algorithm's going to be tending to do is spread the budget out to all the other countries so it can get some learning across everything. Once I see a country working, I want to be able to max it out as quickly as possible. That's how you're going to scale your account and business as quickly as possible as a result. So with that said, following up with that on number 2 here, old campaigns, that is, if you spent over $100,000 in advertising spend for sure, and sometimes a little bit less than that, you're going to want to then add any additional countries that you want to target to your old campaigns. Why? Because the old campaigns have so much acquired history, data about what works and what doesn't work, that starting a new campaign to target Russia is going to it's going to take longer to get to the next revenue growth milestone in your business doing it that way versus just adding Russia to your current campaigns, because it can immediately benefit from all the stored up data that you have in those existing campaigns. If that makes sense. So in summary here, if you're newer or just starting out, you want to have one campaign for each country. If you have existing campaigns and you're adding them later on established campaigns, you'll be better off adding the countries to the existing campaigns that you have. And the kind of like guideline is if you spent $100,000 on a campaign already, you would want to run all those countries within the existing campaign. If you only spent like 10 or 20,000, I would have breakout campaigns, one for each country. Make sense? Okay, so with that out of the way, on number 3 here, you want to understand about international PPC campaigns and management is you want separate domains for each country that you're targeting that primarily speaks another language. So if you're in a country where more than 50% of the population can't speak English, assuming your campaign's targeting in English, but would apply for any other language as well, such as if you're running a French campaign, your website's in French, and you're targeting a country that at least 50% of the people don't speak French, and clone your website and have a domain dedicated for that language. So if you're going to sell in Germany, you're going to then, because basically less than 50% of the people in Germany don't speak French, you'll make a French version of your website. So if your website is, example.com.fr for France, then you're going to clone that website and make a example.com.ge for Germany. And all the content on the website is going to be translated into German and prices in German if you want to tap that market properly. The reason for that is obviously because you aren't going to get nowhere near the sales trying to market to people in French, obviously. As it comes to English though, most countries in the world, at least some of the people speak English. It's the international language. That said, if you only market your stuff in English, then naturally you're severely hamper yourself in markets where people speak another language. Not everybody speaks English. You're only going to get so much percentage of the market. If your campaigns are already working in English, then scale past that point. Once you've pulled all the other low-hanging fruit in your market, that is, you found most of the keywords that work, your campaign results in terms of growth in your sales and your campaigns are starting to plateau off. Adding another site in another language and then targeting them in that country where they speak that language is the next best thing to ultimately do. As it comes to that, when you translate your website and you make that German website or whatever, you want to manually translate that site. There's a major disadvantage to have your website translated with Google Translate. You can ask anybody who speaks another language to read that website and they're going to say it doesn't read right. Or if you want to prove this to yourself, go ahead and take another website that's in French and translate it into English and read the content. Now, it actually has gotten much, much, much better than it used to be at actually giving an accurate translation with Google Translate. We're talking about something that has to be set up very well to get a known conversion rate to make the ads work. Or at the very least, if it's not converted perfectly and you only get 90% of the sales, why would you want to do that when it could literally cost you $100 to translate this damn website into German? And you may say, well, that's so much money because I have to translate it into 75 languages, whatever. Sure. Well, in that case, don't do all the countries at once. Do it one at a time. And you're going to target all the English countries you can at first, where people speak primarily English or over half, 50% English. Then you start getting into the countries that don't speak English. At least 50% of them don't speak English, either as a primary or secondary language. Then you're going to start making the country-specific sites, translating that site into the country's primary or language that most people speak. And then you're going to run that campaign, get it working, make the money from it, spin off part of the profit from that campaign, do the next country's campaign, and so forth. Manual translation. And then along with that, you're going to translate your ads and your keywords along with it. And again, manually. Why manually? Because you want it to be accurate. And this is actually even more important to have the ad and the keyword translated accurately versus Google Translate. Now, that said, if you want to just quickly find out, is it going to be worth your time to run your ads in Germany? Go ahead and have Google Translate translate it all. The ad, the keyword, the website, that's fine. See if it will convert. You'll get close to the results you could get with not having it professionally translated. But if it's working and you know it has life, meaning you're like, let's say halfway to your ROAS goal, and you know if you just optimize your campaign a little bit longer, age the campaign a little bit longer, you'll be at your ROAS goal and you'll be good. It'll be a long-term revenue provider for you at that point. Then, instead of waiting around and wasting all this ad spend for the algorithm to eventually find out how to run the ads profitably in that new market, get the damn thing translated properly because you'll get to your end goal sooner. It's just a no-brainer to do that if it looks like that extra country is going to work ultimately. And it's a way to get all the profit out of what you're doing. You can easily find someone to translate your stuff on Upwork. It's not that hard to do. Or those professional translation companies out there, and they'll charge, not even that much money, more like a few pennies a word. Okay? Not that big deal of a deal to get it manually translated. Now, for that matter, and another quick word on that, if you're wondering if you should go through a professional agency or like through Fiverr to get something translated, for the most part, you're going to get a better result with an agency because the agency has vetted people, because you don't know what you don't know. How do you know somebody translated your website into French properly? You don't know unless you can speak French. You could actually get it translated and then ask another French person, is it translated right? But how do you know that you can trust them? Ultimately, you can see where the issue comes up, and the only way to fix it is to have an actual agency do it that has good reviews. We've had people on Fiverr translate stuff before, and even though I know that person can speak that language as well as English well, the reality is if someone on Fiverr is just trying to get shit done and belt it out as fast as freaking possible. So you're not going to get the best, most ideal result going that direction, even though it's tempting to do that because they only charge you $50 to translate the website or whatever. Whereas an agency is going to charge you $250. My suggestion is going to be to, again, use Google Translate to test out the additional market you want to be in. Then go to the agency. Don't do the stupid middle ground of the Fiverr or whatever. Or Upwork can be okay as long as you got somebody with at least 1,000 hours of booked hours on the platform and you know that they actually specialize in translations. You could get a better deal than an agency and end up okay. But a lot of times for obscure languages, you're not going to find who you want on Upwork, and you got to actually go through an agency itself. So beyond that, it's generally only worth it to target rich countries only in terms of translating everything. Translating everything into Swahili so you can target people in Ethiopia isn't going to probably be worth your time. When I say countries that are worth your time, going into this next one, it's once you actually let's say you're in the US, you got your ads to work in the US. The next logical thing to do, that's going to be the next most profitable thing in line to do, is going to be the Five Eyes countries, which if you don't know what that is, it's going to be, you've already got US, that means UK, it's going to be Australia, it's going to be Canada, it's going to be New Zealand. Because they're all mostly English speaking, obviously, and you don't have to translate anything, and they all they're wealthy countries. It's very easy to get a high conversion rate in those countries. Now, that said, other countries that don't have the same conversion rate as the Five Eyes countries can be profitable because the cost per click is cheaper, which is why you do it. Generally speaking, you'll get to profitability sooner in the Five Eyes countries than trying to get a campaign to work in Ethiopia, even though the cost per click there might be a penny a click. Because there's just nobody, it's 100 times harder to get someone to buy something when they don't have money to do anything besides eat day to day. Even though you may say, well, why are they searching for a placement Honda Civic mirror if they couldn't afford it in the poor countries? And that's the way that it is. So at least if you're going to, in general, just the way that we're going to do it at our firm is going to be to start in the Five Eyes countries, even though you could there's an opportunity to have a certain country in Africa that has it's a huge arbitrage opportunity for you. Once you do that, then generally it's going to be Europe, and Western Europe to be exact, Belgium, France, Germany, Sweden, Netherlands, and on and on. Then, along with that, it's the UAE. Is generally going to be profitable as well. If you want to go further past that, I'm going to be doing Singapore. If you want to go past that, you could get into a little bit of Hong Kong and keep going. So, but you get the general theme here. The places that have the most concentrated wealth are going to be the places you want to advertise first. Not to say some of you guys sell an item that's only $50 that you could easily sell to people in all countries. It's still going to generally be more profitable sooner in the game to go after the most wealthy countries first. The only logical thing to do is to target people that have a high percentage of English speakers first, because there's more market share and you don't have to translate the content. Then when you start translating the content, it makes sense to go after places that have the highest income, because that's going to have the highest potential. And if you want to add to that, the highest income plus the most people, because they speak English. In Europe, you can target Crete, which has 1 million people, or you could target France that has 40 million people. It would make sense to target France first, obviously. If you're not sure what to do, you can always reach out to me at my agency at guaranteedppc.com, and I'll have a conversation with you about what you should do as far as your international strategy, as well as like 20 other things you can do to make more money on your ads right now. I can give you a guaranteed results along with it. Even if you don't want to work with an ad agency like ours, you should at least find out if we've gotten the results you're looking for in your market and sell you the ad templates that work for your niche market. There's a lot of guys that we've worked with that haven't went international. You could with it, and therefore use the exact ads we got to make good results in, let's say, the US and in other countries, and just the template that works that you can automatically apply to your international campaigns and get results right away with it, or at least after a break-in period of running the ads. Of course, the algorithm's getting used to it. I can tell you what results we got in what markets. We've worked in over 100 niche markets in the last 10 plus years of running this firm, and what you can get by using the templates. We got people using these templates to start whole their businesses from scratch because they work so well, whether they are selling leads from our templates or they're subbing out all the work and they're just having a website and answering the phone and they have a business already, whether they're selling product that they can easily get from China and it's a commodity type product, but it works because we have the ad strategy that works to sell it, like printer toner, mattresses, whatever. If you have any questions about anything I'm covering here, by the way, you can always leave me a comment in the comment section. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, typically within 24 hours. Beyond that, getting back into what I was mentioning here. Now, as far as case studies go, all right, we sold performance auto parts at a company that I also had interest in, but it was technically still a client. And these are a car faster, whatever. And we started out selling in the US like we normally do. You're always going to start in the US. You're not going to start international because it's going to be half of your sales that you're going to get are typically going to come from US in that scenario, and the other half is going to come from other countries. Once you run ads to all the other countries for people that speak English there, and then you start translating and start selling in other countries to the people who don't necessarily speak English or read English. But in that scenario, yeah, literally half of our sales that we were making was international, which shows you what the potential is of international once you get it going. And that's pretty typical as well, where we also had professional services where we marketed international and we got this to actually work before, namely key legal services, okay? Mainly because if you have a specialist legal service, there's people in other countries who need that service, assuming this was a legal service that kind of like bridged the gap between one country and another. And that was also very successful. And again, it's roughly about half of the sales that we were getting were coming from international. What you're going to find is some countries are going to be wildly more profitable than other countries. You may find, for some reason, China does 10 times the volume as Japan. And it's a little bit different for each market. The only way you know it is once you actually go out and try it. You'll find that out what it is for your market, but it's worth doing because you can double your sales going ahead and making these other campaigns. And by the way, we've doubled the sales running our ads outside the US without even translating the stuff. And the general rule of thumb is if you are able to double your sales just in marketing out of the country, but only in English, once you translate everything, you can double it again. Or even triple it again is what we had before, literally. So there's a lot of opportunity to scale just through running your international campaigns and doing it right, because you may be the only one in your entire market who's willing to do it. And for that matter, if you sell something that it isn't too heavy, it's actually really profitable most of the time to sell internationally because it doesn't cost too much to ship that product. It might only be, if it costs $5 to ship in the US, it might cost $20 to ship internationally. Well, if it's a niche item that they can't get in that country, they're more than happy to buy it and you can have a really good extra bit of business, double or even more your sales out of Google ads, or if you're going to do Microsoft ads, same way, just adding that to your overall strategy. If you're talking about running Facebook ads internationally and so forth, it's the same thing. it'll work and multiply your results the same kind of way on Facebook as it in terms of US versus outside the US, if you will. We sold a radiation blocker product in terms of a case study here for you again. And we're doing okay adding the countries to the existing campaigns. Once we broke it out into new campaigns, because this guy wasn't very far along. We've had spent close to $100,000 in our overall campaigns, but I noticed the sales were doing pretty good within the campaigns because you can break down your sales by country in your campaign in the locations report. Started breaking it out. The results we got were we were able to scale the international sales much sooner, having those international campaigns broke out. Now that said, we had an issue in that case. If you have search partners turned on, it blew up the campaigns initially. Getting that turned off, then the results are there. Even then, when you start out a new campaign in a new country, it can be very volatile at the beginning, like we had here as well. But if you have smart bidding turned on and you're able to track properly, which is the key to all this, you can actually get it to work just as good as what you have in the US in terms of ROI. And it's just a matter of how much sales you're going to bring in, not if it will work. Because ultimately, there's a price per click that it's going to get you the ROI that you want. And you just got to find out where that cost per click is and find out where it is per country. And it's easier to find out where it is per country when you have separate campaigns for each country, going full circle on what I was talking about here. If you're stuck in terms of your revenue growth and you want to figure out what you need to be doing with your ads or whatever it is to get you to the next level. I've been doing coaching calls with clients as well recently, and I will actually in a 30-minute session go through with them and find out looking at their sales strategy, their website, their pricing strategy, their ad campaigns, of course, and find out where the bottleneck is and then let them know what it is. And I've been doing this because I've realized recently that most of you guys watching this channel, at least, the issue isn't even necessarily the ads. The issue is the website or something else. You got to get that patched up first before you scale the ads. And then once you come back to the ads will just start working like they should have been the whole time, and you didn't have to make any changes there. It would be highly valuable if you're stuck in terms of your revenue growth to reach out to me to have that kind of call with me, because I can tell almost for sure what the bottleneck is, because I've done this with hundreds of companies over the last decade plus. And I'm very good at spotting what the inefficiencies are in the overall marketing sales mechanism that the company has. You reach out to me at guaranteedppc.com if you would be interested in that. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Hopefully that makes sense, and I'll see you on the next one.
Remember when I said International PPC Campaign S was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.